My mother kicked me out of my brother's engagement dinner for being adopted, then Venmoed me a $3,270 request to pay for the ring she had secretly charged to my card. She thought she was just securing her real son's legacy, but she didn't realize I had the private email address of my brother's billionaire future father-in-law. I didn't cancel the charge. Instead, I forwarded the receipt to the bride's father with a subject line that canceled the wedding in less than 20 minutes. But to understand why I burned my entire family to the ground in a single evening, you have to understand the dinner itself. You have to understand the theater of it. We were at the Gilded Fork. It's one of those places in downtown Chicago where the menu doesn't have prices and the lighting is dim enough to hide the desperation of the clientele. The air smelled like truffles and old money. I was sitting in the corner seat, the bad seat, the one where the waiter's elbow brushes your head every time he passes. My mother, Susan, was holding court at the center of the table. She was wearing a silk navy dress that cost $600. I knew it cost $600 because I saw the charge on the joint account I managed for household emergencies. Apparently, looking wealthy for her future in-laws constituted an emergency. "Isn't this marvelous?" she chirped, gripping the stem of her wine glass. "Caleb, darling, tell Mr. Sterling about your venture again." Caleb, my brother, the golden child, the prince of potential. He leaned back in his chair, flashing that charming, empty smile that had gotten him out of 3 DUIs and a semester of academic probation. He was wearing a bespoke suit, another emergency expense. "Well, Arthur," Caleb said, addressing the billionaire across the table with unearned familiarity, "it's really about lifestyle curation. The market is saturated with products, but it's starving for experience. My firm is going to bridge that gap." I took a sip of water. Firm was a generous word for a laptop and a Squarespace website I had built for him. Caleb didn't have a firm. Caleb had an Instagram account and an allowance that came from my salary. Arthur Sterling was listening politely. He was a shark in a human suit, a man who built a logistics empire from scrap metal. He had cold, intelligent eyes. I could tell he was skeptical. But he loved his daughter Lydia, and Lydia loved Caleb. Lydia was sweet. She was the kind of rich girl who thought bananas cost $10, but would give you the coat off her back if you shivered. She was holding Caleb's hand on the white tablecloth, looking at him like he had hung the moon. I felt a pit in my stomach. Not jealousy, nausea. I was watching a con artist work a mark, and the con artist was my brother. "And Maya," Mrs. Sterling said, turning to me with a polite, pitying smile, "Susan tells us you work in shipping?" "Logistics," I corrected gently. "Corporate crisis management and logistics. High-priority supply chain solutions." "She's an assistant," my mother interrupted quickly. She laughed, a brittle, tinkling sound. "Maya is our little worker bee. She keeps the trains running on time, don't you, sweetie? Very practical. Unlike Caleb, Caleb has always been the visionary, the artist." The worker bee, the mule, the ATM. I looked down at my plate. The filet mignon was cold. I hadn't taken a bite. I was doing mental math. The dress, $600. The suit, $1,200. The car lease for the BMW Caleb drove, $550 a month. My contribution to this dinner, $500. I was 27 years old. I had been funding my parents' lifestyle since I was 22. It started small, a missed utility bill, a grocery run. Then it became the mortgage. Then it became investing in Caleb's future. They told me it was what families did. They told me we were a team. But looking around this table, seeing Caleb preen while I sat by the kitchen door, I realized we weren't a team. I was the staff. The waiter cleared the plates. The tension in the room shifted. It was time for the main event. Caleb tapped his spoon against his glass. The sound rang out, sharp and demanding. The room quieted down. "I'd like to make a toast," Caleb said, standing up. He looked handsome, I'll give him that. He looked like the son my mother always wanted. tall, broad-shouldered, with the strong chin that he inherited from our father. "To Lydia," he said, his voice thick with rehearsed emotion, "the love of my life, and to our families, coming together." He raised his glass. We all raised ours. Then my mother stood up. She didn't look at me. She never really looked at me. Her eyes were fixed on Caleb, shining with a terrifying intensity. "I also want to say a few words," she said. Her voice trembled. "As a mother, you dream of this day. You dream of the moment your child finds their equal." She turned to Arthur and Mrs. Sterling. "We are so proud," she said. "We have always known Caleb was destined for greatness. It's in his blood. And that's what matters, isn't it? Blood. Heritage." She placed a hand on Caleb's shoulder. "I thank God every day that I was blessed with a real son to carry our name forward," she said. The words hung in the air, heavy and toxic. "Someone who truly shares our spirit, our DNA, our legacy. It is a comfort to know the line continues through him." The silence that followed was absolute. It wasn't a casual slip of the tongue. It was a surgical strike. I was 7 years old when they told me I was adopted. They did it casually while watching TV. "Oh, by the way, we picked you up from an agency." They never made me feel special about it. They made me feel lucky. Lucky that they deigned to take me in. Lucky that they let me stay. But real son? That was new. I felt the blood drain from my face. My hands started to shake. I set my glass down. It clinked loudly against the china. Lydia looked confused. She looked from my mother to me, her brow furrowed. "Susan?" she whispered. My father, the coward, was staring intently at a bread roll. He knew. He always knew. He just didn't have the spine to stop her. "Mom," I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Hollow. "What did you just say?" My mother looked at me, annoyed that I had interrupted her monologue. "I was speaking about Caleb, Maya. Not everything is about you." "A real son?" I pushed my chair back. The legs scraped against the floor, a harsh, ugly sound. "I've been paying your mortgage for 3 years. I bought the car Caleb drove here tonight. I paid for the dress you're wearing right now. Does my money count as real family money? Or is my cash just a donation from a stranger?" The Sterlings froze. Arthur Sterling's eyes narrowed. He looked from me to my mother, calculating. My mother's face went rigid. The mask of the doting matriarch slipped, revealing the sneering bully underneath. "How dare you?" she hissed. "How dare you bring up money at a moment like this? You are so petty, Maya, so transactional." "Transactional?" I laughed. It was a wet, jagged sound. "You treat me like a bank account with a pulse. You take and take and take, and then you stand there and tell a room full of people that I'm not real?" "You are jealous," Caleb shouted. He slammed his hand on the table. "God, you're always so jealous. You can't stand that I'm happy. You can't stand that I'm successful." "Successful?" I pointed at him. "You're unemployed, Caleb. I pay your cell phone bill." "That is enough," my mother shrieked. She pointed a manicured finger at the door. "Get out. You are ruining this night. You are toxic, Maya. You have always been toxic. Get out of my sight." I looked at my father. "Dad?" He looked up, his eyes watery and weak. "Maya, please, you're upsetting your mother. Just go." The betrayal hit me harder than the insults. He was supposed to be the neutral one, the one who quietly thanked me when I transferred the money to keep the lights on. But when push came to shove, he folded. He always folded. I looked at Lydia. She looked horrified. "I'm sorry, Lydia," I said softly. "He's not who you think he is." "Go!" my mother screamed. I grabbed my purse. I didn't look back. I walked out of the private dining room, past the stunned waiters, and out into the humid Chicago night. I was shaking so hard I couldn't find my keys. I dropped them on the asphalt. I crouched down to pick them up, and I stayed there for a moment, kneeling in the parking lot of a five-star restaurant, gasping for air. I sat in my car for 20 minutes. It's a 2018 Civic. Reliable, sensible, paid off. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I was running through the catalog of memories, recontextualizing my entire life. The time I needed braces, and they said it was too expensive, so I worked a summer job to pay for them myself. 2 months later, they bought Caleb a dirt bike. The time I got into the state university on a partial scholarship, and they told me I'd have to take loans for the rest because money was tight. The next year, they paid full tuition for Caleb's private college, which he dropped out of. It wasn't just favoritism, it was predation. They had identified the weak link, my desire to belong, my fear of abandonment, and they had monetized it. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. I flinched. I expected a text from my dad apologizing, or maybe Lydia asking if I was okay. It was a notification from my banking app. Chase fraud alert. Suspicious activity. Then a Venmo notification. From Mom. Request $3,270. Note, for the ring. I put the down payment on your Amex since it has the points. Just accept the charge and pay me the difference for the install fee. Don't be petty. I stared at the screen. The blue light illuminated the dust motes dancing in the dark car. My brain couldn't process the numbers at first. It rejected them. $3,270. I opened my American Express app. There it was. Pending. Jewelers of Chicago. $3,270. Timestamp. 7:48 p.m. 3 minutes after she kicked me out. She had kicked me out of the restaurant, sat back down, ordered dessert, and then used my credit card under the table to pay for the engagement ring she had just toasted to. She had the card number on file. 2 years ago, my father needed emergency dental surgery, an implant that insurance wouldn't cover. He was in pain, crying at the kitchen table. I gave my mother the card number over the phone and told her to put it through. "I'll delete it right after, honey," she had said. "You're a lifesaver." She kept it. She wrote it down. She saved it for a rainy day. Or rather, she saved it for a golden child day. I felt a coldness spread through my chest. It wasn't the hot flush of anger anymore. It was the absolute zero of clarity. They didn't just think I was not real family. They thought I was stupid. I looked at the Venmo note again. Don't be petty. Petty. Petty is complaining about a bad tip. Petty is not inviting someone to a party. This wasn't petty. This was grand larceny. This was identity theft. This was a felony. But if I called the police right now, what would happen? It's a civil matter. It's familial dispute. My mother would cry to the officers. She'd say I gave her permission. She'd say I was confused. No, police were a blunt instrument. I needed a scalpel. I needed to confirm they felt safe. I needed them to dig the hole deeper. I took a deep breath. I typed a reply to the Venmo request. Me. Mom, what is this? I didn't authorize a ring purchase. I watched the 3 dots appear immediately. She was on her phone at the table. Mom, stop it. We discussed this. You said you wanted to help Caleb get settled. This is him getting settled. Don't ruin this for him. We can discuss a payment plan later if you're so broke. There it was. The lie. The gaslighting. We discussed this. We never discussed this. But she was creating a narrative in her head where she was entitled to my money. Me, I'm not broke. I just didn't agree to buy his engagement ring. That's over $3,000, Mom. Mom, it's an investment in the family. Stop being selfish. Just approve the charge if the bank calls. Do not embarrass us in front of the Sterlings. We are at dessert. Me. Okay, I won't embarrass you. I set the phone down. Okay, I whispered to the empty car. I won't embarrass you. I'll destroy you. I drove home. I didn't speed. I obeyed every traffic law. I was a model citizen. My apartment was quiet. It's not big, a one-bedroom in a converted warehouse, but it's mine. Every stick of furniture, every spoon, every book was bought with money I earned. I work as an executive fixer for a boutique logistics firm. My job is essentially to make impossible problems disappear for very wealthy people. When a venue floods 3 hours before a gala, I find a new one. When a CEO needs to be in Tokyo by morning and the airports are closed, I charter the jet. I live in the details. I live in the fine print. I know how to track things. I sat down at my kitchen island and opened my laptop. I poured a glass of tap water. No wine. I needed to be sharp. I opened the folder on my hard drive labeled Family Finances. I'm an accountant by nature. I track everything. Not because I planned to use it, but because I needed to know I wasn't crazy. When they told me we paid you back for that, I needed to be able to look at the spreadsheet and know they hadn't. I started scrolling. November 2020. $4,200. Mortgage rescue. Dad lost his job. I drained my 401k to save the house. August 2021. $2,500. Caleb's crypto venture. He lost the private key to his wallet a week later. February 2022. $1,800. Dad's dental surgery. This was the legitimate one. July 2022. $800. Mom's mental health retreat. It was a spa weekend. Monthly, $450. Caleb's BMW lease. It was in my name because his credit score was 420. Total documented support, $47,329. I looked at the number. $47,000. That was a down payment on a house. That was a master's degree. That was a year of travel around the world. And I had given it to people who just told me I wasn't real. I thought about Arthur Sterling. I had met him 6 months ago. He was the keynote speaker at the Zenith Charity Gala, an event I managed. He was a nightmare client. Exacting, rude. He demanded a specific brand of vintage scotch, Macallan 25, the 1998 bottling specifically, for his green room. It was impossible to find on short notice. I found it. I had a contact in a cellar in Austria. I had it flown in via a private courier in 6 hours. When Arthur saw the bottle, he didn't smile. He just looked at me. "You're the one who found this?" he asked. "Yes, sir," I said. "Resourceful," he grunted. He handed me his card. Not the business card he gives to people he wants to get rid of. The black metal card. "If you ever need a job, email me. Direct." I pulled that card out of my desk drawer now. It was cool to the touch. Asterling@sterlingholdings.private. I looked at the clock. 8:15. They were still at dinner. They were probably laughing. Caleb was probably holding Lydia's hand, the ring on her finger, a ring bought with my stolen money. My mother thought she was playing chess. She thought she could sacrifice a pawn, me, to capture the queen, Lydia. But she forgot one thing. The pawn is the only piece that can turn into a queen if it makes it to the other side of the board. And I had just crossed the board. I began to draft the email. This was the most critical part. If I sounded angry, I was the jealous sister. If I sounded emotional, I was toxic. I had to sound like Arthur Sterling. I had to sound like a business transaction gone wrong. Subject: urgent. Fraudulent transaction alert. Wedding cancellation inquiry. Dear Mr. Sterling, you may remember me from the Zenith Gala. I was the logistics manager who secured the Macallan 25. I am writing to you directly because I respect your adherence to due diligence, and I believe you are about to make a significant bad investment. Tonight, at 7:48 p.m., my mother, Susan, charged $3,270 to my American Express card to pay for the engagement ring currently on your daughter's finger. This charge was unauthorized. This occurred roughly 20 minutes after she removed me from the dinner for not being her real son. I have attached the credit card receipt timestamp. I have attached the Venmo request from my mother admitting to the charge. I am not writing to ask for money. I am currently filing a fraud report with American Express and a police report for identity theft against my mother. The ring is effectively stolen property. However, I felt you should know the financial reality of the family your daughter is marrying into. My brother, Caleb, has been unemployed for 4 years. The car he drove tonight is leased in my name. The suit he is wearing was purchased with my funds. For your reference, I have attached a ledger of the $47,000 in support I have provided them over the last 3 years. If Caleb cannot afford a $3,000 down payment without stealing from his sister, he cannot afford your daughter. I am canceling the charge in 20 minutes. I assume the jeweler will be contacting Caleb shortly regarding repossession. Best regards, Maya. I read it over. It was cold. It was factual. It was nuclear. My finger hovered over the send button. A part of me hesitated. This was it. This was the end of holidays. This was the end of having parents, even bad ones. If I sent this, there was no going back. My phone buzzed again. Text from Caleb. Bro, stop leaving mom on read. Just accept the charge. I'll pay you back when the business takes off. Don't be a bitch. Don't be a bitch. That was the spark. I wasn't being a bitch. I was being a creditor, and I was calling in the debt. I hit send. I went to my kitchen. I started cleaning. I scrubbed the grout in the backsplash. I organized the spice rack alphabetically. Cumin, curry, dill, paprika. 10 minutes. Nothing. 15 minutes. Maybe he didn't check that email. Maybe he was busy toasting the happy couple. Doubt started to creep in. Had I just blown up my life for nothing? 18 minutes. My phone, which was sitting on the counter, lit up. It didn't just light up, it exploded. Incoming call, Mom. I let it ring. Incoming call, Caleb. I let it ring. Incoming call, Dad. I let it ring. Then a text from Lydia. Lydia, oh my God, is this true? My dad just got an email. He is screaming. I didn't reply to Lydia. She was collateral damage. I liked her. I really did. But you can't save the village without burning the bridge. The phone was vibrating so hard it was dancing across the granite countertop. Mom, 4 missed calls. Caleb, 7 missed calls. Dad, 2 missed calls. I picked up the phone on the 5th call from my mother. I put it on speaker and set it down next to the sink. Maya! It wasn't a voice. It was a shriek. It was the sound of a wild animal caught in a steel trap. What did you do? What did you send him? I sent him the receipt, Mom, I said. My voice was calm, terrifyingly calm. I was scrubbing a stubborn stain on a coffee mug. I sent him the proof that you stole from me. You ruined it, she screamed. I could hear chaos in the background. Someone was crying. It sounded like Caleb. I heard the clatter of silverware. Mr. Sterling just called the manager. He had the waiter bring the phone to the table. He read the email out loud. Out loud, Maya. I smiled. A small, cold smile. He appreciates due diligence, Mom. I told you that. Lydia left! Caleb's voice broke in. He was sobbing, actually sobbing, like a toddler. She took the Uber her dad called and she just left. She threw the ring at me. You jealous psycho! You just cost me everything. I didn't cost you anything, Caleb, I said. You can't lose what you never paid for. That ring belongs to American Express. I will sue you, Mom yelled. I will sue you for defamation. You are dead to us, you ungrateful, adopted little... Careful, I said. I'm recording this call. And truth is an absolute defense against defamation. Would you like me to send Mr. Sterling the full spreadsheet? I only sent him the summary. I have the bank statements for the last 3 years, the mortgage, the crypto scam. Silence. Heavy, terrified silence. They realized in that moment that I wasn't just reacting. I was prepared. Don't, my father whispered. His voice was weak. Maya, please, we're family. No, I said, we aren't. Mom made that very clear. I'm not your real child, remember? I'm just the bank, and the bank is closing. We will fix this, Mom hissed, trying to regain control. You will call Arthur right now and tell him it was a prank. Tell him you are drunk. Do it, Maya, or so help me God. Or what? I asked. You'll kick me out again? You'll disown me harder? I'm pressing charges for the card fraud in the morning unless I see a full reimbursement by midnight. And Mom, since the amount is over $2,000, that's a felony. Do you want to go to jail in that $600 dress? You wouldn't, she gasped. Try me. I hung up. Then I blocked them. All of them. I wish I could say I slept well that night. I didn't. I stared at the ceiling until 4 a.m. I felt like I had amputated a limb. It was the right decision. The limb was gangrenous, but it still hurt. But the next morning, the sun came up. The world didn't end. I went to work. I managed a crisis for a client whose cargo was stuck in customs in Dubai. I rerouted a shipment of medical supplies. I did my job. At 11 a.m., my personal email pinged. From Arthur Sterling. Subject, R.E., urgent, fraudulent transaction. My heart hammered against my ribs. I opened it. Maya, efficiency is a rare trait. The wedding is off. The engagement is terminated. My security team ran a background check on your brother this morning using the data points you provided. It seems he has significant undisclosed gambling debts in addition to what you listed. I appreciate you saving my daughter from a mistake. The ring has been returned to the jeweler. You may keep the points on the card. Arthur. P.S. We have an opening for a director of logistics at Sterling Holdings. I've attached the job description. I think you'd be a good fit. I stared at the screen. I laughed. I laughed until I cried. I printed the email. I framed it. I didn't take the job. Not yet. I liked where I was. But knowing I had the option, that was power. The fallout for my family was slow and agonizing. I kept tabs on them through a cousin, Sarah, who was the only one in the family who knew the truth. Without my monthly contributions, the house of cards collapsed in 3 months. My parents couldn't afford the mortgage on the house. They tried to refinance, but their credit was shot because they had co-signed so many of Caleb's failed loans. They had to sell. The market was down. They sold at a loss. Caleb spiraled. Without Lydia's family connections, his lifestyle firm evaporated. He tried to spin the breakup as creative differences on social media, but Lydia posted one simple status update: financial infidelity. It destroyed him socially. He had to move back in with my parents, into a two-bedroom rental apartment in a bad part of town. I saw them once, about 6 months later. I was driving my new car, a Toyota RAV4, fully paid for, down Main Street. I saw my mother walking into the grocery store. She looked older, smaller. She wasn't wearing the designer coat I had bought her 3 Christmases ago. She was wearing a generic puffer jacket. She looked tired. I stopped at the red light. She looked up and saw me. Her eyes widened. She took a step toward the curb, raising her hand, her mouth opening to say my name. Maya. The light turned green. I didn't wave. I didn't flip her off. I didn't frown. I just drove past. I left her on the sidewalk, a stranger in the rearview mirror. But the story doesn't end with them losing. It ends with me winning. The real revenge wasn't the email. The real revenge was the peace. Do you know how much money you have when you stop supporting 3 incompetent adults? A lot. My savings account, which used to hover around zero, began to grow. It grew fast. $5,000, $10,000, $20,000. I started investing. I started traveling. I went to Italy for 2 weeks and ate pasta and didn't check my phone once. 1 year after the dinner, I was at a coffee shop. I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned around. It was Lydia. She looked different, better. She had cut her hair into a bob and was wearing yoga pants and a vintage tee. She looked like a person, not a doll. Maya, she said. She looked nervous. Hi, Lydia, I said. I braced myself. Was she going to yell at me, blame me? I wanted to say thank you, she said. Her eyes welled up. I know it was hard for you to do what you did. It was, I admitted. My dad showed me the full report, she said. The car, the mortgage, the lies. Caleb told me he owned that house. He told me he was supporting you. She laughed, shaking her head. I was going to marry a con artist. I was going to tie my life to an anchor. You cut the rope, Maya. You saved me. I'm glad, I said, and I meant it. I'm seeing someone new, she said, blushing slightly. He's a teacher. He pays for his own dinner. We both laughed. She squeezed my arm. You're a good person, Maya. Don't let them tell you otherwise. She walked away. I watched her go. I took a sip of my coffee. It was a $7 latte. I paid for it without looking at the balance. 2 years later, I was sitting in a lawyer's office. Not for a lawsuit, for a closing. I was signing the papers for my own house. It wasn't a mansion. It was a beautiful, restored Victorian with a wraparound porch and a garden. My partner, David, was sitting next to me. David is an architect. We met at a logistics conference. He loves that I'm organized. I love that he's kind. When I told him about my family, he didn't give me the sad eyes. He didn't ask, but won't you regret it? He just nodded and said, boundaries are sexy. The lawyer slid the final document across the table. Sign here for the deed. I picked up the pen. I thought about the real son. I thought about the legacy my mother was so obsessed with. She wanted a legacy of blood. She wanted a name on a building, a dynasty. She ended up with a son who rents a basement and a daughter who pretends she doesn't exist. I looked at David. He smiled and squeezed my hand. Ready? He asked. Ready, I said. I signed my name. Maya. Just Maya. No family emergency fund, no worker bee, no not real. Just me, buying my own home, with my own money, building my own life. We walked out of the office into the bright afternoon sun. David handed me the keys. Do you want to drive to the new place? Yeah, I said. I do. As we drove, my phone buzzed. It was the first of the month. I glanced at the screen. A blocked number was trying to leave a voicemail. I knew who it was. The timeline matched. The rent was due. Delete. I didn't even listen to it. I rolled down the window. The air smelled like fresh cut grass and freedom. I looked at David. Hey, do you want to get dinner tonight? Somewhere nice? Sure, he said. There's that new Italian place downtown, the Gilded Fork. I laughed, a real deep belly laugh. No, I said, definitely not there. Let's go somewhere real. Pizza, he suggested. Pizza sounds perfect, I said. Because the underdog doesn't need the fancy table. The underdog doesn't need the vintage wine. The underdog just needs to be free. And as I drove toward my new house, the house that I bought, I realized something. My mother was right about one thing. It really is all about legacy. She built hers on lies and theft. I built mine on the truth. And the best part? My legacy is fully paid for.